Don't shoot!
Hands up, don't shoot, the crowd cries to the Ferguson, Missouri police force. They are mostly African Americans who believe they are police targets because of the color of their skin.
Disperse now. Go home. You'll be subject to arrest.
Police in riot gear were prepared for violent clashes with angry crowds last night, and there were some. More powerful, maybe, is the raging sarcasm captured in images like this. Men and women on their knees, hands in the air, pleading to police, don't shoot. That's how they believe Michael Brown Jr. was killed 4 days ago. Unarmed, on his knees, shot in the head, brought down by a police officer in broad daylight. He was 18. The police say there was a struggle for the officer's gun and that the officer had been hit in the face.
Michael Brown Jr. was executed.
That's how the people saw it at last night's community meeting. 67% of people living in Ferguson are black. Only 3 of the city's 53 police officers are. So again, the country is transfixed by a familiar story. A white man with authority and a gun kills an unarmed black man, and it's not at all clear why. Keith Oak, CBC News, Washington.
Hi there, I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
You're tuned in to Video Radio, independent media for an intelligent world, where we're talking about the outrage caused by police brutality in Ferguson, Missouri.
After they gunned down an innocent teenager, or an unarmed teenager in Ferguson, there was a bit of a pushback from the crowd?
Yes, a bit of a pushback. We're starting to see that, it's like the King incident. It's like the Jeff Mantler incident right here in Kelowna, British Columbia, and the cops are acting in much the same way.
They're even going so far as to suppress reporters and journalists from doing their job. They're even using tear gas and arresting them for no apparent reason. Take a look at this clip from Lip TV.
An indication of the heavy-handedness of the police forces in the area. What happened of a couple of reporters being detained and arrested for no particular reason, just for being there and not doing what the police said. In this first video that we're going to show you, this was actually a news crew on the street, an Al Jazeera news crew. Right prior to the video that we're going to show you, you see a tear gas being launched at the news crew that are standing there. Directly at their feet, it explodes. So let's take a look at the video, and this is after the crews run off and there's been tear gas. They come in their armored vehicle. This is in the middle of just a regular neighborhood. They come in, M16s drawn, to take out the position, which is a camera with some lights. But the camera, then they take it and point it at the ground, so that there's no chance that it'll see what they're doing. Thank God they've saved us from that camera crew who were threatening to show us some news. On the same evening, we heard about a couple of reporters, Wesley Lowery from the Washington Post and also Ryan Riley of Huffington Post, both inside of a McDonald's in the area, who were setting up, using the Wi-Fi, using the electrical outlets to post from this McDonald's. The police force moved into the McDonald's to try to force everybody out for reasons unknown, and then they were arrested for not doing what the police said, for not listening to the police. And let's take a look at the video of Washington Post reporter.
Hey, Pin, let's grab our stuff and go.
Right to videotape you, sir?
Hurry up, let's go.
Please don't make her go to me.
Let's go.
You see me working. Please do not tell me not to use my personal.
Time to go.
Right?
Let's go.
Please not wave a gun at me.
We're down about 45 seconds. Let's go.
Just being me.
Let's go.
I'm working on it, sir.
Let's go.
Now, you can get arrested if you do not move when the police say to move.
Of course, we must observe that they are using chemical warfare on innocent civilians in Missouri.
It's funny how they don't say that they're using chemical warfare. They just say that they're using flash bombs and tear gas. And of course, we realize these are military weapons that are being used against citizens.
Of course, it was the grants from DHS and the blowback from 9/11 that really caused a huge militarization of police forces in America, and that's becoming a real problem, and even the mainstream media is starting to take a look at it.
If we take a look at the militarization of the RCMP, we can see the exact same thing is happening here in Canada, but in the States, it's epic.
And of course, there's a lot of money involved in it. Check this clip out.
For several nights this week, this was Ferguson, Missouri. Tanks, combat gear, assault rifles. It looked like a military operation.
You must disperse immediately.
And that's because police departments in the St. Louis area, like those across the country, are arming their officers with equipment once on the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. Much of it is free of charge or bought with federal grant money authorized by Congress. In the past year, the Department of Defense has given local law enforcement over 600 MRAPs, the armored vehicles designed to withstand roadside bombs. Texas alone received 68, Florida 45. The Pentagon program has given departments over $5 billion worth of surplus equipment since the program launched in 1991. Helicopters, firearms, protective gear, night vision, even computers and camouflage clothing. The local police also get federal grant money to buy the military-style equipment. One recent study found the federal government has doled out more than $34 billion to local police departments since the September 11th terrorist attacks. But critics say local police aren't the military, that some of the equipment and tactics should not be routinely used against American citizens.
There's a feeling that you have to justify having it, so you have to find reasons to use it, even if those reasons, aren't really commiserate with the threat that the police are actually facing.
Former New York City Police Detective Bo Dietl says the answer is proper training.
If you're going to have all these advanced weaponry, you must train the people. That must come part and parcel. You're going to buy it, you know how to use it, and know when to use it.
So, of course, the grants for Homeland Security and, of course, the leftover equipment from recent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq are finding their way to the streets of America.
And they're also finding their way to the streets of Canada. We've got pictures of military equipment being issued in Edmonton, of all places, and they have the ridiculous label of being search and rescue.
Yeah, I know, that's kind of a mind-boggler there.
But, cognitive dissonance being what it is, we have the militarization of the police. Of course, this is creating problems.
And of course, the problem is not just confined to Illinois. It seems to be endemic across the United States.
And across Canada, too. We've seen excessive use of force being one of those things. And of course, video cameras are starting to really bring it to the surface.
And of course, there was a second video released of the gentleman who was chokeholded to death in the streets of New York. And of course, has prompted a bit of a blowback there as well.
So watch what happens when you're selling cigarettes.
Eric Garner's violent arrest shocked New Yorkers. And now a second video is sparking more outrage. It shows the 43-year-old who appears to be unconscious, lying handcuffed on the ground. Officers check for a pulse and empty his pockets, but give no medical care. Paramedics arrive about 4 minutes into the video.
Sir, CMS, come on, we need help.
Garner was later taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead on arrival.
Why nobody do the CPR?
No, I did nothing. Because he's breathing.
He's breathing?
Yeah.
On Thursday, Garner was confronted by police officers responding to a call that he was selling cigarettes illegally.
Every time you see me, you want to harass me, you want to stop me while I'm selling cigarettes. I'm minding my business, officer.
As they attempted to take Garner into custody, Officer Daniel Pantaleo is seen wrapping his arm around the 6'3", 350-pound man's neck, despite the NYPD ban on chokeholds. Other officers helped wrestle Garner to the ground. Officer Pantaleo, seen here waving to the camera, has been sued twice in federal court for civil rights violations. On Saturday, he was stripped of his gun and badge pending further investigation. A second officer was placed on desk duty.
This would appear to have been a chokehold, but the investigation, both by the district attorney's office as well as by our internal affairs, will seek to make that final determination.
Garner, a father of 6, suffered from asthma. Police said he went into cardiac arrest, but the medical examiner has not yet determined the exact cause of death. His grief-stricken family wants justice.
And of course, when the police are trying to get away with something, their greatest fear is a video camera in the local area.
That seems to be the only way to hold them responsible, because in spite of all the statistics that are tracked around crime, police crime seems to be, there doesn't seem to be any database for it.
Unfortunately, we've got people down in Newsy who are starting to talk about the fact right here in Kelowna, during the Jeff Mantler case, we found out there were 30 officers out of the 200 who were being investigated for different crimes against the society.
So check this video out from Newsy talking about the lack of tracking of police brutality.
For many, the killing of unarmed college-bound Missouri teen Michael Brown brings to mind other instances where officers used deadly force. Law enforcement is the only non-military career in the country that offers that power, the use of deadly force. Yet, its practice remains unmonitored on a national scale and in most states around the country. While the FBI keeps information annually on hate crimes, aggravated assault, and officers killed in the line of duty, there is no complete database tracking the police's use of force. The Bureau of Justice Statistics has an arrest-related death report, but law offices around the country aren't required to fill it out, and a lot of them don't. As the report notes, Georgia, Maryland, and Montana didn't submit one report for 6 years. Now, in the off chance your city or state does compile the information, history says you won't like the results. Back in April, the Department of Justice investigated the Albuquerque Police Department's use of force after the APD shot and killed an armed homeless man. They found the officers too frequently used deadly force.
Hey! Hey! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down!
A similar investigation was conducted in Seattle, where the Department of Justice ruled that when the Seattle Police Department used force, it was done in an unconstitutional and excessive manner nearly 20% of the time. And in St. Louis, where Michael Brown was killed, a similar report from 2012. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch says on a straight per capita basis, St. Louis officers fired up to 8 times more often than others. From January 2007 through September 30th, 2011, the department cleared more than 96% of the shootings by officers. But unlike most violence in and around the country, this investigation will not be placed in a broader context or a broader conversation because the information simply isn't there.
Now, as we saw locally, CHBC News, Blaine Gaffney especially, in global news reporting, totally ignores the extraordinarily large number of cases of police brutality locally, while of course covering the RCMP as if they're sources.
And of course, nobody talks about the fact that the RCMP are the most cited case for police brutality cases in Canada.
There are solutions and there are ways to get the good cops out there. We just got to start facing up to the problems. And whenever the RCMP are releasing a statement, we should be asking, could you find a credible source? I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
We've got a whole other section talking about some of the solutions. Rialto, California, that are putting body cams on their officers.
And how Anonymous is also stepping up.
It's all coming up next. Stay tuned.
I'm Chris O'Tile, and I'm going to show Prime Minister Harper how to spruce up a hot tub. Now, Mr. Harper, I know what you're thinking. My hot tub isn't hot enough. Well, all you gotta do is get some asbestos. Measure it out in the shape of your hot tub. Cut it out. We have one here. Roy Lowe. Way to take one for the team, Roy Lowe. How's that feel, a shock?
You're an awful man.
Here's an asbestos fun fact.
Since the year 2000, more workers have died from asbestos disease in BC than any other workplace injury.
Wow, really? Okay. Oh well. I want to get out of there, Shock.